To begin, face the audience showing your cards. When you finish reading the text, slide the card to the right with your right hand. You can do this quickly, slowly, or slide only, according to the indication written in blue. Next, place the narrated card behind all the others, thus showing the next scene. Behind the illustrated cards, there is a text that you can read. Continue in this way until you reach the end of your story. A last note, remember to play with your voice. The disappearance of the sun and the moon. A long time ago, the inhabitants of the city of Bucharest heard a strange buzzing sound, and then a long, frightening hissing sound. Zzz. They raised their heads and saw a huge Zmeu, half dragon and half orc, climbing up into the sky, changing shape. First, he plucked the moon out as if it were a ball. Then he headed towards the sun, gloating with joy, and took possession of it. Darkness fell like a heavy blanket over the city. The emperor called together all the most valiant knights, but none returned from the mission successfully. I am desperate. I don't know what to do. I might have a solution. He who has spoken, come forward. Young Gresenu and his younger brother came forward. With every word, the emperor felt heartened. He thanked them and hugged them tightly, making sure to touch their faces with gratitude, even though he could not see them. The two young men set off, reaching the outskirts of town. We must separate so that we have a better chance of finding the Zmeu. Gresenu took his dagger, which he always kept with him. If you see the blade rust or change color, it means that something bad has happened to me. The brother took the dagger and gave Gresenu his own. It will be the same with mine. Then silently they said goodbye to each other, heading in opposite directions. Gresenu continued walking until arriving to the great blacksmith of the earth. My young boy, I have been waiting for you. I have made this mask for you. It is my portrait. Yes, it is, and it will be useful to you one day. I have wrapped it in this cloak to keep it warm, but be very careful. The Zmeu is treacherous, and he is not alone. The family of the Zmeu had had enough of playing with the sun and the moon, and set out to hide them in an old tower. Zmeu's wife said, "We will sleep at the tower, and it will be better for us to go home separately. Our son will return tomorrow morning, me at midnight, and you will arrive the day after tomorrow, Zmeu." That sounds good to me. Zmeu stopped to rest under a tree, on which Gresenu's brother was hiding. Tomorrow I will look for Gresenu to surprise and defeat them. When he reached the bridge, he found his brother waiting for him and told him everything. Hidden in the forest and in the darkness, the two brothers were waiting for the bells to ring 8 times, when the son of the Zmeu appeared. In one leap, Gresenu landed on him and cut off his head in a single blow. "Bravo, Gresenu! Compliments to you!" But as they were still congratulating each other, the ogress loomed over them, her jaws wide open, her rocky tail thrashing furiously on the ground. The two brothers immediately started to run by seeking shelter until they reached the blacksmith of the earth's forge. Zmeu's angry wife pursued them. "I know you are here. Reveal yourself." 7. "Here I am," said Gresenu, showing her the mask that resembled him. It was so hot that it looked as if it had just come out of the furnace. The ogress, seeing that face in the half light, swallowed it, and immediately melted like butter to form a large ferrous mass. "More material for me," said the blacksmith, who made a cart and 2 horses out of the remnants of the ogress. "You will need these to take back the sun and the moon. Now all that remains is Zmeu. Be very careful." Gresenu thanked him and went out to look for Zmeu. After a few steps, however, Gresenu came across Zmeu in front of him, who was ready to strike him with his tail. Gresenu tried to strike him with his sword. "Craw! I can help you! Craw!" croaked a crow flying over Zmeu's eyes, who, distracted by the fluttering of the many feathers, did not see the sword strike him on the head, thrusting him into the ground. Zmeu was furious, but could not move. "Tell me where you put the sun and the moon." "They are locked in an abandoned tower, but you will not be able to enter because only I can open the door with my little finger." Gresenu struck the fatal blow. Then, with his brother's help, he cut off the monster's little finger, and together they ran to free the sun and moon. Once they reached the tower, they loaded the sun and the moon onto the cart and rode to the highest point to launch them into the air. And so at last the light returned to illuminate the world. "Hooray!" they all shouted. "You go ahead and tell the emperor that I am coming," said Gresenu to his brother. He detached a horse from the cart, and as his brother rode away, Gresenu stopped to collect pears. Hidden in the tree, however, was the last daughter of Zmeu, who had been waiting for the young man to take revenge. Gresenu couldn't wait to eat them, and without paying attention approached. The crow who had followed him croaked, "Be careful!" The young man drew his sword and began to fight, and successfully cut off the final monster's head. Caught up in the battle, however, he had not noticed a knight who had also attempted the feat but repeatedly failed. He had been following the two brothers for days. Using Gresenu's distracted state to his advantage, the knight stole the sword and charged towards the castle, where the emperor and the entire town were waiting for the hero. The swindler who had stolen Gresenu's sword stood in front of the crowd and proclaimed, "Here I am! I have finally arrived! I am the one who defeated Zmeu and returned the sun and the moon to the world." "That is not true!" shouted Gresenu's brother, who had seen the dagger stained with rust to indicate danger. "It is not true, for he has only stolen my sword!" shouted Gresenu forcefully as soon as he reached the castle. The emperor looked at the three men confused. The swindler was holding a sword that was stained with blood, as if it had just slain monsters, but there was something about him that was not convincing. Suddenly, the emperor had an idea. "Come closer," he said, closing his eyes and stretching out his hands towards their faces. The emperor stroked the faces of the three men, followed their features and shape. A great smile appeared on his face, which he turned only towards Gresenu. "Here is the man who has accomplished the feat. I would recognize his courage even with my eyes closed." The swindler was punished, and the two brothers became the emperor's advisors from that day forward.